There we go. What's up, guys? Welcome into the Power G show on a Thursday afternoon. I'm Graham Coffey. I am your regular size G. That is George Foster, the big G himself,
the big
proprietor of controversial Dan Jackson takes and and good soul food recommendations. George, what's going on today?
Nothing much, man. We're getting closer to try to get back in the win column. So I'm excited about that. It's never gonna be easy, even though it seems like it sometimes versus our next opponent.
Mm-hmm.
But you still gotta play ball.
You
still gotta play. Rough one last week. So hopefully they're itching to get the bad taste out of their mouths up there in Athens. So let's go. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Well, all right. So let's spin back so we can project forward a little bit. You and I were both at the Alabama game. Saturday night in Tuscaloosa. It was a long night. What time did you get home? Did you get home before sunrise back to Atlanta?
Barely.
Yeah.
That was weird, man. Trying to get out of there. Like, I guess we saw like the remnants of a wreck, but it didn't seem like it should have been that bad. But yeah, didn't really get back to like 5 something. And we, didn't take a lot of wasn't a lot of dilly-dallying after the game either.
Yeah.
And still didn't make enough headway trying to get out. There's a lot of traffic on 20. Oh, not 20, whatever that 450, whatever 59.
59 or whatever. Yeah, it was bad out there. I ended up on some back 2-lane road trying to get back to 20 from Tuscaloosa. And it kind of took me through like 25, 30 miles. And I pop out at a truck stop in McCalla, Alabama, which is not a place you want to be at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was wild out there, man. Like there was this Bama couple arguing and fighting and locking each other out of the car. This drunk Georgia student like kind of stumbled into the urinal and he was like murmuring shit about Bobo, and there was all these people lined up for like stale smelling Subway bread, and there were some campaign buses outside. Like I was like, this is a dark, this is pretty bleak out here right now. I need to get back to civilization. So yeah, it was wild. But I guess for you from the game, I mean, it's sort of like this tale of two cities kind of game, right? And
as much as I've ever seen,
it was the best of times. It was the worst of times,
Literally.
So yeah, what as a football person, as someone who played the game, like, what do you take away from just the role reversal that they were able to pull off? How hard is that to do? And then B, sort of, how can they bottle that and move forward in a positive way, or is it still a loss is a loss?
A loss is always a loss. That's period. That's the name of the game: wins and losses. No matter how you win them, well, the box score doesn't matter. I think there's some things matter how you win and how you lose, for sure, because that's the character of your team.
Right.
That game, I've never had a game change my opinion in the moment like it did with that game. In retrospect, maybe my opinion on what we are, probably wasn't going to change that much. But in the moment, when you're down, 14-0, then 21-0, then 28-0, it's like, man, maybe we aren't, because it's coming on the heels of,
the Kentucky game.
The Kentucky game mattered once it was 14-0. It's like, okay, maybe we not what we're supposed to be on offense, or defense, or anything. You know what I mean? And then
Totally.
So halftime gets there, and then it's like, okay, what are we? What's going on here? and then the tide, for lack of a better word, the tide changed, and it was so crazy. And then like I'm in a have a Broncos chat, and when it got to like 33 to
15.
I think 15 or what it
Yeah.
was, and I don't know if he was just talking or if it was based on something he saw, but Champ Bailey was like, "We're gonna win." And of course, is people, it's non Georgia people in the Broncos chat for the most part. It's only me and Champ in there, I think, from
Okay.
Georgia. And they're talking, they're like, "Yeah, right," laugh. And I'm kind of like, "Yeah, right." I don't know, and it just started happening. I was like, "Is this Joker psychic?" Because you never predict coming back from 28-0. That doesn't
Right.
happen.
No.
That's not just something, you know, it's not something you bet on. It's not something you think. You look at how the game was going and you just didn't see it. You know what I mean? And it started to happen. And we took a lead, and it was like, oh my goodness, this guy is psychic.
Yeah.
And it was all kind of weird. It was the weirdest game. And I also say it's the best game I've ever been to in person. You know
Nice.
what I mean? We didn't
Yeah.
win. I went to both natties. Um, the last one was kind of just okay. It was cool to be there. It's cool to witness back to back, but it wasn't quite a game.
I was there too. Yeah, it was
It was
it
cool
was
to
such a
witness.
blowout. It was hard to kind of believe it was a national title game in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Indy was great.
Yeah.
Indy was great. And it was great to be there. It was cool to experience. But I've never experienced the swings like this game. Like it was for a football fan, Georgia fan or not, it was the best game I've been to. Best game I've been to. And it's like I can imagine what it looked like on TV with people in their homes. I couldn't keep up with the, online with the Twitterverse. I bet the Twitterverse was going crazy, with
It
every
was,
punt,
man. I was
with every
like,
punt. I was
yeah.
like, I know they're having a ball on that app, but I'm in the moment, with my buddies, and it's like, man, that was crazy. But again, let me circle back to what you were asking. What can you take away from it? Um, it kind of says a lot about both teams. I still think, Bama's gonna be, you know, pretty good. You know, that number two, and even I know we shut them down for half the game, but then number four, he's special in his ways.
Uh-huh.
Like
Oh no,
he,
dude,
he's,
there's no question
he's
about
gonna
that.
run. He's gonna run a 4-3
Yeah, I've
whenever
never
he hits the
seen
run.
look, I haven't, I haven't been on the field for as many football games as you've been, but
Mhm.
uh hey, getting down at field level with him, he's a lot bigger than I realized, first of all. Like he's
Uh-huh.
like height wise and just like broad
Yeah,
shoulders and all
you can
that. But
tell his stature. You can tell he's built well.
yeah, and B, I would say for his size, I haven't seen that many dudes who turn the corner like as quickly as he
Mhm.
does. Like he kind of
Yeah,
turns a corner the same way that like Todd Gurley turns a corner,
yeah.
where it's like because he runs upright and sort of like when someone's got that much posture to him and then still just kind of makes
Mhm,
that turn, it's like, wow, how do you do that? I mean, that
mhm.
4th and 1 run where he pops outside and he hits that sideline and he's just gone. It was like,
That was
shit,
crazy.
man. Yeah. And
He
I
is
think
fast.
yeah, he's fast. And I think for me, like I had the similar experience to what you're talking about. Like in the press box, it was weird because there was kind of, like all these like people just like murmuring of like, whoa, like what's going on here? What's going on here? And then
And you have to
all of
keep
a
your composure in a press box.
yeah,
You
of
know,
course,
it
right. And
it's
so I mean, like it
different.
was just I was chatting with with my neighbors up there, and we were just kind of like, this is, I mean, when it was 28-0 with 12 and a half minutes to go in the second quarter, I was like, this could go down as like one of the worst and most embarrassing losses in Georgia football history if they're not careful. Because it felt like the momentum that Alabama had was just so total that it was like they're going to keep going, and if Georgia doesn't figure something out quick, like they're going to, like it's going to be something that they all have to answer for on the recruiting trail and like across the board. And obviously they figured that out, but yeah, at 30-7, I was sitting there and I was like, maybe Georgia's not that good, like I have to consider that at this point of they just might not be that good. And then that thought was kind of followed with like, I covered these kids as recruits. I know how talented all of the individuals are. It doesn't make sense that you would put all those ingredients like into a cake and then the cake would taste really bitter and terrible. So I think they figured it out. But yeah, I mean, what in your mind with, being in locker rooms and being in some locker rooms, I think at Georgia where I don't know if you guys were ever down 23 at the half, but like you guys played in some games against some really elite teams and, we're probably down at halftime at different points of times. Like that 180 that they pulled off, what does that say to you about Kirby and just the mindset of those players? Because I came out of that game being like, he has successfully brainwashed these kids. And when they talk about not playing to the score, they actually like believe that shit.
That's crazy.
They are
That's crazy.
Yeah, like they are literally so process oriented in their
99.9999% of teams of kids are gonna go in the tank right there.
Yeah,
I've seen it a million times. I've seen it in football. I watch my daughter's volleyball games. Like from the neck up is a huge deal with kids. Might be a little different when you get grown, you get pro athletes, but from the neck up with kids it's just huge the way that how much psyche is involved in it. Like when you get 28-0 with kill, like I said, 99.9999% of kids, and like they literally didn't blink. Like they didn't blink. Like I might have been in one game like that. The Outback Bowl, we were either down 21-0 or 24-0 to Purdue.
Yeah, y'all were down 25-0. I remember that game.
It was 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, 25-0 to Purdue. Drew Brees, Chris Daniels, Vinny Sutherland. They had a good team. They had Aiken Adelli. They had some good teams. And we really we came back and won that game. And so I don't remember what the process was. It was just we were talented for sure. Had a lot of talented players, Quincy Carter, Marcus Stroud, Richard Seymour, you name them. We had a lot of really good players. So the talent, when put in the right position and stuff is gonna overtake, their talent. You know what I mean? And I think Georgia's talent showed up, their coaching showed up in the end, and they were just able to. It's still unbelievable right now to think that it happened. I can't believe they took a lead in that game, and if it wasn't for a 1 in a million type player, in that number 2, in Ryan Williams,
he's different.
They probably
very different.
Very different. He doesn't move like a regular athlete. He doesn't move like a good athlete. He's in another
tier.
By the time it's over with, I think I've explained it before in my scouting years, we have blue players, and there is rarely, some years have more than others, but most years there's not many players in the blue tier. And like he's got blue traits, and his
Mhm.
production probably gonna end up putting him in the blue tier. You know what I mean? With Aaron Donald and those kids, like I'm pretty sure Adrian Peterson was a blue player when he came out. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
like Megatron
Julio
was
and
a
those kind of
Julio was
guys.
a blue player.
AJ
You know what I
Green,
mean?
like those, yeah.
Like the kid at Ohio State, he's gonna be a blue player.
Jeremiah Smith, is that
Yeah,
you mean?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He's Jesus. That's
dude.
his
Well,
Julio in the
and
flesh.
Williams, man. So my experience in all this was odd because uh, even at 33-15, it was like it didn't feel like Georgia was coming back, and they had that, they
Yeah.
had the fumble that Carson had kind of 11 or 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. It was like there were so many times that you kind of looked and you were like, well, that was it. That was probably their last chance to
Mhm.
really get back, because especially because you didn't
Exactly.
expect them to shut Bama out. But
Exactly.
it was fun, or I don't know what the right word for it is, but look, Alabama lets press box media go down to the field with 6 minutes left in the game, right? And so
Mhm.
right about that 6 minute mark was when Georgia hit those two plays, to cash on the wheel route and then Arian down the sideline, and they are down at the 1 yard line, and I run and jump on the elevator and go down there. By the time I get on the field, they've scored, and Bama is, basically third down and then punting back, and then so the first play from scrimmage really that I'm on the field for is the Dylan Bell shot. And I mean, I have a great
Mhm.
video of it, like, because I'm right by the Georgia sideline, and there's people running around like with their hands on their head, kind of in disbelief. And then I also got a video of Ryan Williams coming back in the other direction, right in front of me, because I was right on that boundary there. So
Mhm.
it was incredible to watch. And I mean, just as a fan of college football, and as somebody who, let's be honest, like my path in this media world started from a place of passion, right? And just like thinking about football too much to not talk about it on some level. So it was really cool to just be in that environment and experience it. And I think for Georgia fans who were bummed this week, I totally understand that Alabama is the team that everyone wants to beat, and that hump that everyone wants to get over and put behind them. But
Mhm.
also in the 12-team era, I think maybe more than ever, you can look at this game and be like, we learned we learned a lot that we can take forward here and be fine, and just appreciate that, like, your school put up enough of a fight to kind of turn this into a classic. This was a classic football
It was
game
a
that people will
classic.
talk about for a
No
long
question.
time. So
14 million people watched.
yeah, for sure.
14 million people. Like, like I say, it's one of those unbelievable type games that happen.
Yeah.
And it's it's one of those games that weirdly, weirdly, I wasn't I've been more pissed after games before.
Sure.
This one, not so much. It's kind of like this game was like, okay, I see what we are now. I see what we are now. Like we are still a couple concerns, but we kind of still are what I thought we were. And we're gonna get better this year. We're gonna get more people back this year that we need. And we saw some things. Like we kind of saw that we need to involve Lawson Lucky more. We kind of saw
Yes.
we kind of
Anthony
saw
Evans needs to
yeah,
play.
yes, we saw that. We took a lot from this game. I'm not happy with the outcome, but like a lot from this game. We learned about our resolve. We learned about who needs to play more, who shine when the lights were the brightest. We learned a lot. We learned that we can take shots. we learned we
Well,
learned,
yeah.
you know,
I, that
um
was the odd thing about this, right? Is like I think in a lot of ways, Georgia, like, fans have wanted to see this vertical passing attack, and came into the year thinking this would be the year they got that because they had
mhm,
Beck and he's a first round talent and all that stuff. And they they figured it out, right? I
It
mean, it
took a
was
while because I'm not gonna lie, I still don't think you should make it your point to throw into drop 8 all game,
right.
all first half.
Yeah.
Even drop 7. I like 6-man box, run it.
Yeah.
6-man or less, 6-man box or less, run it. We didn't run nearly enough, so I'm disappointed in that part of the game. I still think we had a chance to run it even when we got down, 14, you know. But when we had to take those shots in the end, we were able to. I know we're probably gonna play better DBs, maybe, but at the same time, the kids made the plays they were supposed to make. You know, you know, 15 probably could have made better plays with his arm, with not underthrowing some of those balls. Um, but at least we see that guys will compete downfield.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I mean, I thought Carson had a really bad game, or first half, or however you want to phrase that. He had a lot of mistakes that were uncharacteristic, or they need to be uncharacteristic if Georgia's going to go forward and compete for what they want to compete for. But I will still say, like, I thought there were quite a few plays throughout where his receivers could have helped him a lot more. And I think looking at this Auburn secondary, Georgia is going to have matchups that they want all across the board, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that, like, that is, I mean, like, not to be mean or anything, but like Arian Smith, you miss a check that cost
yeah.
you 7 right there. You drop that first pass that was one of the best deep balls I've seen Beck throw in all of his time as a starter. It was
Mm-hmm.
dropped in the bucket over the outside shoulder, opposite hash.
Beautiful
Yeah.
pass.
And, seeing that, it's like, I think we've known that there's some question marks about Georgia's receiving core throughout the year. Like coming into the year, it felt that way. There's talent there, but that talent hasn't really been established. And I've wondered, truthfully, going back to Kentucky, kind of how much of Carson's struggles have been a little bit related to just not having that trust really developed yet in those types of moments. Like, I know it looks good in practice. Great. I know you guys throw on air together in the summer. Great. But it is different when it's live bullets. And I just think Carson, last year with Brock and Ladd, he was as good as anyone throwing up the seams, anyone in the country. And you kind of look at this now and you're like, that hasn't been part of the game. I don't know if that's a Delp issue or a Carson issue or inside receivers issue, but finally in that third and fourth quarter, it just got to junctures where he had no trust or no choice really but to just trust it and throw it. And it worked out pretty good. So, I think if there's anything that's encouraging to me, like, yeah, the deep shots are great, but you saw him finally kind of get some rhythm with some of those guys on some of these routes up the middle and over the middle. And, like, look, he came out and did not have his best stuff. And even as that comeback started, he was missing on some throws and his receivers were kind of picking him up at that point and like catching some balls behind him and stuff. But he just kept kind of going until he got into a groove. And I don't know how to feel anything about that other than just kind of like a level of respect of his ability to just kind of keep flushing it.
Yeah, like he fought it out. Like he fought through a rough game. Those turnovers are killer. Can't turn
Yeah,
over the ball. I'm pretty sure he was told as such. Once that game was over, or even during the game.
sure.
Head man ain't gonna. Coaches, period, do not take kindly to turnovers. You know what I
Right.
mean? They'll let it be known you can miss throws, you can do a lot of things, but turn the ball over. And
Right.
he had some turnovers that were his fault. And we had to fix that. Um, and quite frankly, in the end, we had one too many turnovers where I think, 50-50 balls to big guys need to be up somewhere. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
receivers have to knock them down if they can get to them. But to me, I think 8 was kind of fading. So I don't think he could have broken that one up. Maybe just that's how it looked in slow mo. It don't look like he could have broken it up. I think it just should have been a better, higher ball to a big guy. That's the purpose of big guys.
Yeah, no, the ball. I was right there, dude. The ball was woefully underthrown, and I think Carson was the first person to tell you that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
So just wondering if it was a physical issue or not, because that wasn't the only one. So it's okay. Like, does he have his stuff tonight? You know what I mean? So you have to wonder about that, and of course
I've wondered if he's hurt on some level.
And we won't hear that. You know what I mean? Unless if he is and he further injures it, we might find out something, but until that happens, we won't know anything. So we have to assume he's healthy. And just there was a lot of throws.
He threw the ball 50 times. He had 17 throws of 20 plus yards in that game.
You know what I mean? So that could be part of it. That could be part of it. You know what I mean? That's a lot of throws. Some fatigue. You know what I mean? So we'll see. You know what I'm saying? I haven't dwelled on that game at all.
No, I agreed with what you said a moment ago.
Where it's one of those games where I know exactly what to take from that game, and I could just move on with it. I know what it is.
So, what do you take from it? I mean, like, is second half Georgia what the entire plane is made out of, or is it just the black box?
You mean is second half Georgia the real Georgia?
Yeah.
Oh, they're the whole game is Georgia. You know what I mean? Don't get it twisted. I
like that take. That's a very good take.
The whole game is Georgia. It's like a human. Like, you have your good days, your bad days. Some days, some days your wife's gonna be like, "What the is up with Graham today?" You know what I mean? Or more days than you
do.
might.
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you mean.
What is up with Graham today? And that's fine. That's the whole Graham. That's the whole you. That game was the whole George. You just hope Georgia has more of their good days than their bad days.
So you're saying don't love me at my best if you're not going to love me at my worst. Is that
yeah. And I think you can expect better though. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with expecting better. You know what I mean? I don't think what happened will happen again. But I'm just very surprised. Now I know Georgia's good. Georgia's coached very well. Georgia has a lot of talent. I just like going into the game. Once it got 28-0, my friends started reiterating that, and I heard this before the game. It was like, he's different. DeBoer is different than Saban. Up that game, he would try to slow it down at 28-0 and try to get up out of there.
Correct.
And everyone told me that DeBoer is going to try to score 50 if he can.
He tried. He was throwing reverse passes
and he couldn't. No. He just couldn't. Like they had. I was saying that since the first quarter, they had scored 5 points until the end. Some people like to remind me that it was 21. But that fourth touchdown was scored pretty early, right in the second. Like so call it. So
it was 28-0 with 12.5 minutes to go in the second quarter.
Since then, they had 5 points until that last touchdown, I believe.
No, after I mean
Like
they got outscored. The second quarter was basically 9-7 Bama, and then Georgia outscores them 8-3 in the third quarter. And then the fourth quarter, Georgia puts up 269 total yards and outscores them, what, basically 21-7. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And so, like, they tried and he couldn't. And I think that also bodes well for Georgia that like he's a great offensive coach, man. I can't, there's nothing to take away from him.
Sure.
And they were able to still shut that down for most of the game.
Yeah.
And for Bama, I know they got some stuff they're thinking about, like how did that happen for 3 quarters? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so, like I said, that's the whole Georgia. That whole game is Georgia. But I think it's very huge, and it should be noted and taken very seriously that that comeback was able to happen. So they got some real character on that team.
Yeah, well, so last thing I'll say about that, and then we'll move to Auburn. And this is not meant as a shot at your guy, Mark Richt, at all. But you remember when Mark Richt used to, I don't know if he did this when you were there, but there was a lot of times where he'd kind of huddle his guys up on the sideline mid-game, go into the fourth quarter, or, with 5 minutes to go when they really needed to stop and, like, give them give them a little speech or kind of try to get everybody on the same page, right? And I've never seen Kirby do that mid-game. And with about 7.5 minutes to go, he gathered all those guys up. And I mean, like, I had binoculars in the press box and I was like looking at him. And I mean, he was emphatic, there was some strong language going on, but it was not he was not tearing them down. It was like I interpreted it as you've been trained for this moment kind of speech. And then they come out and 2 plays, they're on the one, and then 3 and out, and then 1 play touchdown. And I was like, damn, man, late in Coach Rick's era, I feel like there were a lot of like times where he kind of tried to like squeeze that out of his crew. And I don't know if it was a talent issue or what, but like they just weren't quite able to get that response. And it was like, man, Kirby really got that response that he wanted, like he's built up a lot of equity with these kids over a long time, and he rarely ever has to like cash it in a moment like that. But when he really needed to have some balance in his account, like it was there, and he was able to kind of use that. And so I think if you're a Georgia fan, like that's the big thing, is just there is no question to me that Georgia listens to him and believes in what he has to say and believes in all of these like traits and program, these composure card and these different things they talk about. It's like that is not just lip service. That is, they live that shit every single day, and they really do believe it. You're muted.
That game went a long way. That game is gonna go a long way. It's like they won't be in another game. They won't be in another tough situation this year where it's not like it's just water off their back.
Right.
They like the next tough situation is going to be a cakewalk. You know what I mean? Because they we got Lamar in the chat, y'all.
What's up, Lamar? It's our guy.
We got Lamar in the chat. What up? What up? What up? But anyway, yeah, the next tough time they have in the game is going to pale in comparison to what they just went through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't worry about that team, going forward. Had they lost, 38-7.
Lamar says the Dogs will not lose again this season. Mark my words, fellas.
I believe him. I believe him. It's there. It's there. You got some tough games coming up. but like none tougher than what just happened.
No,
Like,
absolutely not.
you know what I mean? Just happened at 4 turnovers, down 28-0 at Tuscaloosa with the lights. It don't get more it don't get more big time than that. And those
No,
guys stormed back, you know.
absolutely.
And it ain't like it, you know, it was like they did it when it had to happen, you know, in the end. You know what I mean? That was a big fourth quarter. It was
For
a big
sure.
fourth quarter.
All right. So Georgia, Auburn, Deep South's oldest rivalry game that you played in. I think this is a game that Georgia and their staff have a lot of respect for. Cyril's and T-Rob both played at Auburn. You know, you've got Kirby who played in this game. You've got Bobo who played in this game. And I think that there's been a lot of like preaching around the building this week of, hey, like this game can get physical. And this is a game where weird stuff happens in this series and teams play each other close. And, you know, to be cliche, it's a throw the record out kind of game. So what are your thoughts on the Tigers? They're 2-3 coming into this. They have had some struggles, but as Kirby said this week, and I think, you know, said it pretty well, truthfully, like this is not a bad football team on a down-to-down basis. They have actually been they're 11th in the country in yards per play offensively. Like they, you know, they're clean. Or I'm sorry, their offense is 7th nationally, 6.4 yards per play on offense. To put that in perspective, Georgia is 8th at 6.3 yards per play. And from a net yards per play standpoint, which is just offensive yards per play minus defensive yards per play allowed, they are 9th in the FBS, which is very good. 2.97 net YPP. You mess around here, you can get bit. That's kind of what I want to say here, to be clear in the beginning. I think like Auburn is last in the country in they're 132nd with 16 total turnovers on the season. You don't have that ending drives, then you really don't see them like punting a ton, you know.
So there's that goes. So what you just described is, like I said about Georgia, that is the whole Auburn.
So you're saying that you don't get the 6.4 YPP without the 16 turnovers.
Yeah, turnovers are, you know, if you
don't consider turnovers luck, you consider them a trait. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's your character. You know, turnovers are their character. Big plays on offense is their character. You know, they have to make more big plays than they do turn the ball over. Will they have games this year where they might not turn over the ball or may have one or so? Yeah,
right.
You know what I mean? But, you know, they've shown they're prone to turn the ball over. They've also shown that they have, you know, they have some big play guys on the outside. You know what I mean? They have a solid backfield. And Thorne is, you know, he can get it to who he needs to get it to. You know what I mean? And so that, you know, that can come up, that can show up big if you're not on your game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're not on your game, they have some guys that can get down the field and make some plays, and that you look up and you're down, and you know, what if they play good defense that day? You know what I mean?
I agree with your analysis there. I mean, I think, look, they have a really good running back in Jarquez Hunter, who is, you know, averaging 4.6 yards after contact per a carry, which is, and that's not like he beat up on Alabama A&M. That he had 4.35 yards after contact and attempt against Oklahoma, 4.83 against Arkansas. He falls forward, he runs tough. You let him get to the second level clean, he'll give you problems. If anything, he's been underutilized, in my opinion. I think some of that's because Auburn's played from behind in different moments and all that. But he is a good back. He is the type of back that if you miss a run fit, he can go 65 on you. Like,
yeah,
no question.
Yeah.
And if you're Georgia, you defended the run well last week after you figured out how to, stop crashing your
Neuro.
edges and get to the quarterback. But they defended the run well in terms of between the tackles. But I think you look at what you didn't do well was play the ball in coverage downfield, and like you said, man, Auburn has some stud wide receivers. They've got Cam Coleman. I covered him as a recruit. Again, he is a freak. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. He's a 5-star. He is not Ryan Williams, but like he is,
big body.
He's up there. Go. Yeah, he is. He's one of those types of dudes. 3 catches for 82 yards last week. And the thing to watch here, truthfully, is like when he's getting thrown to downfield. Average depth of target is 18.3 yards so far this season. And then they got Keandre Lambert-Smith, who is the Penn State transfer, 6'1", 180, outside receiver.
Yeah, last week.
Yeah, and he makes plays after the catch too, like averaging almost 9 yards after the catch per reception. And let's be frank, man, Georgia hasn't tackled well, and they're playing a receiver in Lambert-Smith who is very good after the catch, and they're playing a running back in Hunter who is tied for 11th nationally in missed tackles forced so far this year. So,
and Simmons will get down the field.
Oh,
Simmons had a long touchdown last week.
He's kind of their Arian Smith type, it seems. He played 6 snaps and had 4 catches, which is not.
I like Damari Austin. He's from Woodward. I remember him as a kid, going to those games. He can run the ball in between the tackles really well. Like I said, they got some, they're not great at QB, but they got some weapons that help that a lot. And O-line, seemed to do okay when they needed to. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Daniel Denny, who is an Auburn fan in the chat, says we're getting booty blasted by 50.
I hope so. You know what I mean? I hope so, but I'm not gonna count it before it happens.
Yeah, well, and I look at this. I think Auburn has some good pieces. What you said about Thorne, or the turnovers, I like the way that you frame that, and I think with Thorne, you see kind of how should I put this? He's one of those guys who, like, if you can get him doing what he does well, he can do it well, which I know is, not exactly like some fucking Plato, excuse my language. So, like, that's not really like a philosopher's take there, but if you keep him out of long yardage, he is good. Like, if you keep him out of, 3rd and 7 and all of that, like, the RPO stuff works, and he likes to throw off play action. I've got the number here, but they've run play action on 43.3% of his dropbacks, which is a ton. That's a lot. And like, I think that he is a 59.2% passer, but last week he was a 65% passer who threw for 338 yards and then had the crippling pick 6 that cost you the game. My point in saying all that is, if you're Auburn, I think you want to keep him throwing to the boundaries, and you want to keep him doing it downfield, and you want to mix in like Lambert-Smith kind of just like running a quick little 8-yard comeback route somewhere. Keep him out of the middle of the field, keep him out of the intermediate portions of the field, and you can
that pick manage. 6 was rough though. Like that mugged up backer, and he kind of stumbled out. It's like he almost stumbled out of the picture, and then it's like pop up, boo boo. It's like he caught his footing soon as the ball was coming.
Right.
Like, and then he picked it off, pick 6.
It feels like they've got, that's what you want with him, right? Is to be in a spot where you can drop 7 and drop 8 and, have some like simulated pressures. Like, I feel like this could be the game where Jalen Walker gets his first interception of his career, because he's going to be rushing and all of that. And I think they've struggled at times with pass pro up the middle. And
Mhm.
you bring him a few times and they get used to seeing that, and then all of a sudden he drops out and bang bang boom, right? So yeah, that feels like the name of the game. If I'm Auburn, I'm going to come in and I'm going to hand it to my guy who's averaging over 4 yards after contact and attempt on first down, and hope that I'm in 2nd and 5 and can run all my RPO stuff and open my playbook from there. But Georgia gets an opportunity here from a defensive back standpoint to really kind of correct immediately some of the issues of last week, because if they don't play the ball in this game, they will give up a lot of explosive pass plays. Like they will give up, a couple of half at least, if not more.
Mhm. They I think Georgia can this is a game where Georgia can, work on that stuff, man. Um, Good running backs, good receivers, marginal QB, but QB that can get the ball where he needs to get the ball where he needs to get it, when he's, not under duress and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so they're gonna have to be on their game. They're gonna have to be on their game. I think, offensively, moving on the offense, I think there's gonna be some holes. You know what I mean? What's the kid's name? Sharp. He had a big, he had a
Hold on,
time.
you're breaking up.
The kid named Sharp, the Oklahoma kid, Sharp, the
Oh,
tight
the
end.
running back?
I think he's a tight end. I thought he was a tight end.
Okay. I'm sorry. Gotcha.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
middle of the field was wide open. Like I can see. I was just watching the breakdown of that game, just envisioning Lucky going down the middle of the
That is
field.
the spot for me, man, they lost Champ Anthony, I believe is his name, who was, I think, maybe their best safety or certainly one of their starters. And dude, watching that OU game, that does feel like, okay, like working the inside receivers and the tight ends and the backs in the pass game, there should be ample opportunities. Like they should be
Mhm.
able to hit Lucky on some corner routes or, some different things. And I really want to see ETN get involved in the pass game in a way that's not just, checkdowns. I want to see them because Auburn, I think this is a defense that would kind of, struggle to have to deal with getting outside of the box at the linebacker position a lot. They got Mossy, the number 12 linebacker, and they got Asante as well. But it's like both those guys look uncomfortable to me when they have to get out on the perimeter and chase things, or when they have to cover, beyond about 10 yards downfield. So maybe this is the time we finally get like an ETN wheel route or something like that.
Yeah, like the one that happened versus us.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Totally.
saw that coming. I saw it. I was like, "Oh hell!" Like I saw it. You saw when as soon as he took out, I was like, "Yep, the wheel is coming."
You
Oh,
did.
Jim,
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
that was a hell of
that
a
play
throw.
was over
That was
like
a hell of
two
a
and a
throw
half
and
seconds
catch.
before the ball was snapped. When he took off in motion, you were like, yep, like he's out leveraged. It's going to be 6.
Yep.
It's a beautiful throw, though.
Yeah, great throw. Great throw,
Um,
Jed.
but yeah, I mean, like looking at these corners, man, not to sound like a, rude or anything, but I don't think they have like a real stud, I mean, like Keontae
Mhm.
Scott in the slot, you see him kind of struggle with some switch concepts, and like he sort of struggles, I think, to work through traffic at times and to stay connected further downfield. And then you've got like Antonio Kite, who's a Bama transfer and has given up some plays this year. And you also like Kaden Lee's been the number one guy, and he gave up a long kind of ball last week against a receiver that frankly I don't think is that good. So point in saying all that is not to say these guys are bad players or whatever, but it is to say I think Georgia should look out on Saturday and say, we like the matchups everywhere. And we just threw for 400 plus yards at Alabama. We don't want to become a team that throws the ball 50 times a game, but we do need to I think that this is a game where they can pass early to open up the run a little bit. And if they get a few passes hitting early on, there's a chance that there could be some massive holes there for ETN and Robinson and
Frazier. You said Robinson. He's back?
Branson.
Okay.
Nah, I don't think we see Roderick till November, to be frank.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he had surgery on his toe. I know for whatever reason, it seems like Georgia hasn't I don't think they've said that publicly, but
I think so. I know he had surgery.
Okay. All right. Well then, cool. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah. At least I think I saw that online somewhere.
DawgCentral.com is probably where you saw it.
Probably
might be, though.
Probably was.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, I think to your point, George, to frame this statistically, Auburn from a success rate standpoint, which is really just a measure of how well you stay on schedule offensively or keep teams off schedule defensively. They're pretty good. They are, they're a very good success rate kind of team in certain scenarios, but they're at least middling across the board. But they are terrible from an explosiveness standpoint. They are 90th in rushing explosiveness allowed and 93rd in passing explosiveness allowed. So they're stopping some games or some plays, but they're also, giving up some big ones. So with that, let's unless you got anything else, let's make some predictions here.
I think we're gonna, like I said, get that bad taste out of our mouth. I think, I know they were dialed in this week. I heard they had some physical practices. And it's a home game. We get back between the hedges. It's been a while. Had the bye week at Lexington. Had Bryant Denny. So I think they get off the schneid, and I think they do it. I think they do it really well. So I'm thinking Georgia, just with the deficiencies I see in the back end for Auburn. I think Georgia scores about, just call it, let's get them, I think 38. I think 38 to 14.
I like it.
38-14.
Yeah. I think for Georgia defensively, you got Mondon out, so it's going to be important these guys, eye discipline and watch these RPOs. And I think the good news is that they kind of saw Auburn beat them with some of that stuff last year, and I think that they'll be ready for it. So I like Georgia to play the run pretty well. I think this is a chance for Kristen Miller and Ingram Dawkins to have big days in the interior kind of pass rush area, and against the run as well. But I think both those guys will look disruptive against these guards. And Connor Liu is a good center, but he's kind of just not looked totally like himself this year. So that middle three seems like a spot to watch. And also Auburn's tackle is injured. So
which one?
We'll see. Isaiah Miller is questionable for the game.
Is that 73?
I think so. Yes. Okay. Let me be sure here. I got it written down. Yes, Isaiah Miller 72. I'm sorry. He's the right tackle. Percy Lewis is 73, the left tackle.
All right.
But yeah, man, I think all of this is going to be kind of like deep ball roulette a little bit for Auburn. I think a lot of their chances to score is going to be dependent on that. Their kicker has been bad, so I think they will go for some fourth downs inside Georgia's 40. I think, Georgia will probably stop more of that more often than not. So, yeah, man, I think Georgia kind of maybe has some bending, but not a lot of breaking in this game, and will do a lot to, you give Schumann and that brain trust a chance to kind of deal with a turnover-prone quarterback. I think they'll disguise some things that'll be kind of fun to watch. So I'm interested to see where Georgia's linebackers go after the snap on some of these plays and kind of how they drop in and out. But I think big game for Lucky. I think this might be his kind of coming out party game on a real level, like 4 or 5, 6 catches type level. And I like for Georgia's, I think Arian can have another good day and all that, but I think Lovett should have a lot of room against Keontae Scott if he gets some downfield routes, called. So I'm going to say that this is the week he finally hits like a long touchdown or eclipses 100 yards in a Georgia uniform. Anthony Evans can hit some big plays too, assuming he gets that run. But yeah, man, I think Beck should approach or eclipse that 300-yard mark if he plays a clean game. And I got Georgia 34, Auburn 14, but I could easily see that being 41 or 38 if Georgia gets off quick. But I think Georgia's going to get off quick, and I think they'll probably come out, and if they win that toss, I think they take the ball and go and, immediately put pressure on Auburn to play catch up and see if they can kind of get those turnovers rolling and really create some separation. We do have real quick, we've got a prediction here from our guy, Lamar. He says, the Dogs will start fast. The run game will look better, but you will see better leadership from Beck, from the defense. Expect hell unleashed, all caps, bold, hell unleashed. Playing more loose, not tight in picks. Dogs 45-9. Vince General in the chat has got 45-6. Oh, Lamar also added 321 and 3 touchdowns for Beck. Look for a pick 6 or fumble, scoop, and return from the defense. And then he told me to quit being soft and put my nuts out there because the Dogs are rolling this week. All right. I like it. All right. For George, I am Graham. Thank you guys for joining us. This has been the Power G Show. If you are in Athens Friday afternoon, I will be at Creature Comforts Brewery from 4 to 6 p.m. Doing some broadcasting. I think there will be, I think Harry Dog's coming through at 5:30, and there will be some folks around. So come on down, hang out with us. If you're there, I might hand you a microphone if you look like respectable and you're not gonna drop F-bombs in front of children. So roll on out, and we'll see you there. Y'all go follow George at George Foster 72 on Twitter, and come check us out at dogcentral.com. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.